Jillian Vitko is an actor, singer, musician, writer, and comedian. Her original solo show, Synesthesia the Musical, premiered at Edinburgh Fringe Festival and was named a standout show by PopDust. Since then, she's adapted the stage script into a screenplay, Synesthesia Story. The film script has been making festival rounds, garnering awards such as Best Drama Screenplay for the Brno Film Festival and Best Feature Screenplay for the FFTG Awards and Robinson Film Awards. She released her first single and music video for the song Color Me Crazy from the film, and she also recently released her acoustic EP, Glimmers. She currently performs in New York City in the comedy shows On the Spot at the Broadway Comedy Club and True Crime the Musical at the Players Theater. You can catch her film work on Amazon, Tubi, and more. Visit JillianVitko.com. That's JillianVitko. When and how did art enter your life, Jillian?
I think it's just, I don't even know, because I just, as far back as I can remember, I was like, I'm going to be a singer and an actor. And I just was always that kid. I made like business cards when I was like 7. It was like Jill Vitko, singer and actor. But it was never like, I want to be a child star. It was just like, I'm going to grow up and be an actor. And I think it was just my escape from, like, because I had some things in childhood that were traumatic, whatever. But I think it was my way of being like, I can go to my room and like be whatever character, sing whatever. And this is just what I want to do forever. It just never was a doubt in my mind.
So how old were you when the business cards and I want to be an actor?
Maybe like, I remember it pretty clearly, maybe like 7, somewhere around there.
Were the business cards just construction paper and scissors and a pen, or what?
Yeah. I cut them out. I wrote, it was Jill Vitko, actor / singer, I think. I don't even know who I handed them out to. I guess my family, but it was just like, just get ready for this. I guess this is what's gonna happen.
Where was this?
This was in Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
Johnstown,
kind of near Pittsburgh. Do you know Johnstown?
I've been there once.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in my burlesque days, before I was an actor, I don't know if I would call it like petite, but it smaller, kind of normal for Pennsylvania-sized town, really, though, right?
Pretty small, yeah. Pennsylvania, there aren't a lot of huge towns, but yeah, it's on the small side.
So you don't go back there?
My mom lives there, so like I'll visit, but I don't for no length of time. It's just like to visit my family. And I did live in Pittsburgh for a while, so I performed there a little bit, but as far as like any kind of theaters in Johnstown, I really don't remember. I just did high school stuff because I went to college and I didn't live there after that.
Was college
not my vibe.
Yeah. No, to be fair, Pennsylvania is much more part of my life than I'm giving it credit for, because I don't want to give it credit for anything.
Yeah, I feel you.
I identify with nothing in Pennsylvania. So
that's fair.
When there's nothing for you and you have to be creative, I think sometimes that brings out your best. Was that the case with you? Did you not identify, or did you identify with Pennsylvania culture, and how did that affect your art?
I wasn't born there, but I moved there when I was a baby. So it's all I really knew as a kid. I guess, I feel like there wasn't a lot of outside, like, because it's not like I lived in New York and was like seeing Broadway shows all the time. So yeah, I'm sure there was that part of like, I need more stuff. Like I just always wanted to be making new stuff or seeing new stuff. And there wasn't, there's shows in Johnstown, but it wasn't like I could go see new art being created. So yeah, I think it was just, I was doing everything and anything, like acting, in the mirror, like singing, writing. I was, writing music, writing poems. Yeah, I think it was just, there wasn't, and I don't even know where I first got the inspiration. All I can really remember is the first movie I was obsessed with was The Wiz, the like 1978 or 5 version with Diana Ross, Michael Jackson. I watched it like before I could speak. My mom knew what I'm babbling meant, that I wanted to watch The Wiz on VHS. I like wore out 2 tapes of The Wiz because we recorded it from TV. And so I think that it was just like, oh, this is my people, like this is, I identify with this. And I just, yeah, I guess like once I started to speak, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna sing. I'm gonna ease on down the road. I'm gonna, like I just went boldly in that direction. Yeah, I think just because there wasn't anything else to do. Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah, I clearly remember The Wiz, and
Oh, I love it
uh,
so much.
yeah, I mean, what's fascinating too is that I think most recently when it gets brought up, it's panned as this like horrible thing,
I
and
know.
why?
I know.
It-
I don't know. I tell everyone to watch it. Like, because a lot of people haven't seen it. Even like, most of my friends are artists and a lot of them haven't seen it. And I'm so excited it's coming to Broadway this year. Because it's great. The music is so great and it's just iconic with the people who are in that film. And yeah, it just made such an impression on me. And I still watch it to this day. Like I love it.
yeah.
So I owe a lot to that film, I think.
So you said you went to Johnstown, you went to Pittsburgh for a bit. Where did you go to
Mhm.
school?
University of Pittsburgh.
So Pittsburgh has had a pretty strong impact on you then, yeah?
Yeah, I stayed there for a while because I went to school there and I like stayed after graduation and I did my first web series in Pittsburgh. I did a lot of theater still, a lot of musicals because in Pitt I was a theater major and I wasn't really singing. Like they didn't have a musical theater department. So I got back into musical theater more, which was great 'cause I love it. And so yeah, I got to do a lot of cool stuff in Pittsburgh and I do think it's a great place. I mean, even still, they're shooting a lot of stuff there. There's a lot of cool shows. I just kind of needed a bigger place to be, I think. So that's why I left to come to New York. But it is a great little arts. It's a small city, but it has a lot of cool art scenes for sure.
One of my friends, James, he was going to, I don't remember what it's is the Art Institute of Pitt, but some art school in
Okay.
Pittsburgh. So we would make trips up there and go to parties and experience what's it called? Is it Mount Washington? Is that one of the areas?
Yeah. Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I just remember really, especially coming from York at the time, being enamored by the culture of Pittsburgh. And there was a lot of art there. I'm not a
Hmm.
sports person, but there's a lot of sports. There was a lot of stuff.
Hmm.
And so was Pittsburgh a good like training ground for New York for you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because I feel like, being in college in Pittsburgh, it could have, I mean, it was cool to be in the city, but it really could have been anywhere just because you're so in classes and you're not doing much in a city. So really, at like the few years after I graduated that I stayed there before I moved here was definitely helpful. Because yeah, I'd only lived in a small town, and I really liked, the city life and just how there's always something going on and being able to like have different jobs and act and be in shows or do films. I just really liked the variety of that lifestyle because I like knew I wanted to be an actor, but I didn't like have a plan per se. I was just gonna go to school for theater and be an actor. And it just made more sense to be in a place where there's so many opportunities. And for a while, Pittsburgh, that was great. And then I was like, New York will have even more. And it does. And it's been almost 10 years that I've been here. So yeah, I think it was a good way to ease into it, I would say. Yeah. Not that anything can really prepare you for New York, because it is a different place altogether, but I think it definitely helped opposed to like just coming from Johnstown to here, because
Or
that would be a lot.
hate to throw all this stuff at you as a mixed bag, but like, would you consider yourself an artist first, an actor first? Um, or are you just kind of an amalgam of everything? And if you're willing to share, what was some of your trauma that propelled you into that?
I mean, I guess professionally, I do consider myself an actor. I didn't. I know the business card said singer slash actor, but I have always written music, but I didn't want to like tour with my songs. I love being an actor, but I guess I would say artist because I do so many things and I don't I love to do so many things. So it's not like, oh, bummer, I have to sing, or oh, bummer, I don't. It's like, I love it all. Um, so yeah, normally I don't like, I'm not an open book. However, because a lot of my trauma has gone into my writing, I'm able to like talk more about it, and like I've gone through a lot of the processing of it. Because as a child, I had a sister who I'm very close to now, but she is like 4 years older than me. So when I was a kid, we weren't like, it was just a big age gap. And I had a pretty emotionally abusive dad, and I was not, everything I did was like, because I'm, like I was a strong, independent kid, and that doesn't fly with emotionally abusive men. So a lot of my, what I've written in my film, which was based on my solo show, is about that, because I had like, I just kind of dealt with it, went to school, whatever, left for college. I'm out, right? I'm free. So then he gets very sick. He gets brain cancer in 2010, around there. And it was I didn't know what to do because I didn't speak to him. He was very like, he just always yelled at me my whole life and was just very, we weren't, I didn't really feel a connection to him, but he's dying, and I figured I should visit him. So I visited him. At the time I was in a relationship, pretty serious relationship. So my boyfriend at the time met my dad, and then so basically to just for the timeline, my dad passed away like right before this guy broke up with me. The funeral was on my birthday. I had to sing at the funeral on my birthday. I like wanted my boyfriend to come. He was my boyfriend at the time, but like it was like a 3-year relationship. I was just a mess. Because I also hadn't processed a lot of the trauma, because the brain cancer, he wasn't the same person, it affects your brain. And he didn't really remember a lot of my childhood. So I kind of had to process that on my own. Meanwhile, I'm processing a breakup. Just truly the worst. 2014 was the worst year of my life, and that a lot of that is in the film. So that was like 10 years ago, and I moved to New York that same year. Also, let's add another thing. That was my first year in New York. And so I was just completely depressed. Like it was a hard year. I will say one of the things, like you were talking about with the Shakespeare, one of the things that saved me was musical improv classes. I took my first musical improv class when I got here, and I could just shut my brain off. And I still do musical improv all the time. It's one of my favorite things to do. But that year was, I mean, that's why I wrote music about it. How do you like even speak to the pain? It was a horrible, horrible year. And I learned a lot from it. And I normally, yeah, I like didn't really speak about any of it, but then I was like, how do I put all my music into a show? And I was like, oh, I have to just tell the truth. And so that's why, yeah, so I did a solo show about it, and now it's in this film form. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I've processed a lot of it, but it's still like when I think about it, I'm like, my God, it was a lot. It was a lot. So I'm no stranger to trauma, in short.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
One of the things that all authors have shared that I've known is that you have to tell the truth, the uncomfortable, vulnerable truth, because that's the only way any human's going to identify with your work at all.
Hmm.
And ultimately, as storytellers, what the hell are we trying to do anyway? So
Right.
we have to tell the truth, right?
Yeah. 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 So one of my favorite storytellers is Mike Birbiglia. If you're
Yes.
familiar, I love
Of
him so
course,
much.
because of improv, he's your favorite. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. And of course he's funny, and but one of the things he says is like, the story you don't want to tell anyone, that's what you have to tell on stage. That's the story. And I'm like, what? That's so, because I'd written a lot of like comedy and stuff, and I'm like, oh, I just write whatever, like fun. But like, yeah, especially in a solo show and you're storytelling, it's just, yeah, it took me a while to accept I had to tell this, but it truly, I mean, it was very cathartic. It still is, but it's hard to like get over that. Like like people have to hear me say these words. It's rough. never come back again.
We each wrestle with our experience until we get to a point, I think, where we accept it and can work with it. And for you, artistically, that took you to New York. So when did the idea that, oh, I think I need to move to New York, or was it always a dream? What was that?
I don't remember when I realized, but it's like I love New York. It makes sense because I want to sing, I want to do theater, I want to do film. And yeah, I just kind of was like, it's happening. And it was pretty quick, like from when I decided to when I wanted to go. Cause I don't like the long, like I didn't do like a goodbye party. I just wanted to like start my new life in New York. It was also part of that like rough year too. So it was just kind of like, I think I'm just going to try this and go and try to make it work. And thankfully, yeah, it's been going well, but yeah, it's not easy. It's a hard place. I got a room in like the third apartment I saw here. I don't even know how that happened, but it just sort of all worked out because I was like, I'm just going to make it work. Yeah.
But it was all your own volition. It wasn't anybody saying, "Why don't you come out here? You belong there," anything like that.
No, I mean, people in Pittsburgh, like, because it was always known that, like, I wasn't going to stay there forever. And people, like, I would talk about New York and people were like, oh, yeah, when are you going to move? And I'm like, I'm saving up, whatever. So I think New York was part of, but at one point I was going to move to DC. It was like, I just wanted to go somewhere else. Like, I just didn't want to stay in Pittsburgh. And I don't know when I just decided it had to be New York, but I'm glad I did. But yeah, people were like, knew it was going to happen. It just, like I said, it's like I didn't have like this huge savings and it I just had to sort of be like, it's happening now, like because you're never gonna have enough. You're never really gonna be ready. So yeah, it all happened very quickly. And I really don't remember like I do remember telling because my boyfriend throughout the whole dad thing, I was dating him when I was like, I'm gonna move because he was still in school but then he broke up with me anyway, so it doesn't matter. But we were gonna like work it out, because he was very like encouraging. I'll give him that. And so I moved when we were together, but then we broke up the first year. But yeah, I mean, I think it made sense. Like everyone knew it was like something like I was gonna move at some point, and it made sense that it would be to New York. So here I am. And I mean, I've been here for almost 10 years, so it was a good choice. I love it here.
That first, I don't know, period year that when you first got here, what were some of the first, you're trying to get your foothold, you want to get into a show, or what was that process?
So I moved here in March and I was just looking for jobs, any job. I had a couple like auditions right away. I feel like I booked my first show. It might have been like early. It was like a couple months in at 13th Street Repertory, if you know it. It's like been torn down since then. It was like this one of the oldest theaters. It's pretty sad because it's not there anymore, but it was in the Village. And it was a musical. But it didn't pay a ton. Like I was still looking for other jobs. I did like after school work. I did brand ambassador stuff. And like I said, that first year I think moving to New York alone would have been hard, but then add the breakup, but then add my dad dying. It was just like, there was so much, it was really, really difficult. And truly like what got me through it, I think was musical improv. It really was that like, cause you cannot think, you just have to sing and make stuff up and like be supported by people in the room. And that really got me through that first year. Because I knew a couple of people in New York, but I don't even talk to them anymore. Like we weren't that close. So I really just had to like try to find my community because it took a while, but comedy definitely helped me do that. And get through that first year. That's really what I remember most about it. Just remember like trying to get to the next thing and trying to get to the next like, performance where I can just not think about stuff. And it's stressful too with money. And just sort of keep moving forward because what you always have to do. Just keep trucking.
Yeah. Now you alluded to your upcoming film, so this is about
hmm
synesthesia.
Yes. Yeah. So one of the things that also happened during the first year of New York, um, all the things that were going on, I was depressed, right? So I went to therapy. And the first therapist I spoke to, I was talking about like a color, and she was like, after a few questions, realized that I have synesthesia, which I had never heard of before. And she gave me a book to read about it. But essentially, I have a couple different forms, but that one is like associating colors with people. Um, and so I started to learn more about it in this was like 2015, I think, when I went to therapy. So that has been a big part of like processing a lot of this, because it it's really hard to explain. Are you familiar with synesthesia at all? Because I wasn't before.
No, not until
Okay. Okay.
you. And so I looked it up, and I did find out that there are multiple ways you
Yes.
can have it.
hmm
So
Yeah. So a lot of the common ones are associating colors with numbers or letters. The one with people's a bit less studied. But I also have it with music, and I find that when I describe it, a lot of musicians are like, "Oh yeah, I have that." A lot of people just don't know that they have it, but it's common with music and being a musician. But the one with people is it can be confusing because it's not necessarily like an aura for everyone. Sometimes it'll just like I'll meet someone, it'll hit me. Sometimes it'll take a while. But it's been interesting to figure out, like look back and like this has just always been a thing I did. I just never, like I said, I don't share a ton, so I never talked about it as a kid. It was just like, this is a thing I do. It could be weird, it could be normal. I don't know. But I never knew it was like this thing that people study. So now I'm like part of synesthesia study groups. I'm on an email list. I try to like talk to other synesthetes. And through the film, I have an Instagram for it. So it's been cool to like meet other people with synesthesia and connect with them because I still don't know a ton about it. Like it's still kind of confusing and it is really, really hard to describe, which is part of why I wanted it to be a film because on stage I can only do so much, but the visual aspect of film is going to really be helpful because it's like this is what it's like. Like it's more I'm more able to show you because telling is hard. I often feel like I like there aren't words in English to tell you what I'm seeing. It's confusing, but cool, but confusing.
another question I have about it is, so I'm a deeply, deeply spiritual being, and
hmm
so this process, I woke up spiritually when I was 19. Well, part of that process was reading about people that could see auras. There was someone describing, like actually, they were saying if you take your fingers and put them close together and kind of unfocus your eyes, eventually
hmm
you'll see this layer on
Mm,
the outside of your fingers.
hmm
And so I did that. I could see it. I was like, wait a minute. I've always seen this. And I didn't even realize it. Like my brain didn't say this is something. It was just,
Uh-huh. hmm
and then I would play with doing that with people while they were speaking. And I was told it was easiest in nature. Um, I got to a point where I could see some people's auras and,
Mm,
but it was more of like, it was less about color. I mean, there were kind of like the ones I saw were kind of like a very bright amber, um,
hmm
as opposed to just like, that like yellowish, goldenish color. It was
hmm
bright. And
hmm
it moved right before the person moved. Um, so I would notice the
Okay.
aura going this way, and then the person started to walk that way. That kind of a thing,
Huh. Okay.
which spiritually makes complete sense to me. But
hmm
so what I'm wondering is that related to what you call synesthesia at all?
It sounds like it. It's so for me, I'm gonna try the like unfocusing your eyes on other people because so yeah, it's similar to like these have always existed. Like it is sometimes color, but sometimes like people's voices have shapes is the best way to describe it. It's more like what does it look like, but like in shapes. But color thing or shapes, whatever, is, yeah, it's always there, but I've never articulated it. And so like finding out I had synesthesia, it's not always like, sometimes it has to hit me in the face to be like, oh, you're orange. But I think it's always there. It's just when people are like, what's my color? I can't like contrive it. Like, I don't know. Like I have to feel it. So I want to try that. Like, cause I don't really think about, because I don't want to force it, I guess, because in the past it's just been like, I know it, like it just, you know, I see your color, I feel your color. But it would be nice to be, because I don't have control over it in that way. So that's very interesting. And so like I will say, like when so the show I do on Monday, the improv show, we have singers also doing cabaret songs, and it's so fun because we have new singers every week, and I just like close my eyes and like hear their like see their voices. So in that sense, I've been able to sort of like acknowledge it, but the colors is harder, I guess, because I just want it to feel organic. So yeah, so it's hard to just be like, oh, you're this, because it's not. It's just sort of, yeah, it's hard to always like find, because I'm not used to like acknowledging it still, you know. It's just like part of the person, like their aura, their spirit, whatever it is. Yeah, I think it's like their energy, their soul. It's something. I had a therapist once who was like, maybe you see people's pain. Like there's something about certain people's souls or whatever that is more clear to me. And it's just like, it's kind of a puzzle. I want to figure out what it is. But yeah, maybe I should try some new techniques. Sounds like.
And how would you describe what the story is for people that might find intrigue?
She's dealing with this breakup. She was with someone who is just basically ghosting her. He's not responding. Then she finds out her dad is sick. She has to go home. Meanwhile, she's in therapy. She finds out she has synesthesia. And one of the things in the film, which is interesting because I read this in a like research book on synesthesia, is that they say that anyone who has synesthesia like gets it from the father. And so there's this like angle of like, did he give me this? Like, why do I have this? It's because it's very, you know, it's confusing. Like throughout the film, she meets new people and they have a color. And she's just sort of trying to navigate that, the breakup, the death of her dad, and her music. And just, yeah, it's just very much like what she's going through internally and how she comes out of it. Not to give away anything.
No, that's great. That's great. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you giving me the time.
Yeah, it was so great to talk to you and meet you. And
Yeah.
however we know each other.
Yeah, now we know who we are, kind of.
Yep. That's always helpful. Always helpful. Yeah.
Jillian, thank you so much for giving me the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was so great to talk to you.
Likewise.